I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson. And we're really pumped about this because we've been typically doing these, on Zoom and all that stuff. So this is the first time that we've actually doing a This Week in Anderson in the studio. So it's kind of in the new USBN studio. So it's kind of cool and fitting for that is going to be, joining me as always is my co-host Steve Ellis. And Steve, it's, rightfully so that we have the guy at Anderson High School. That's the Mr. Do Everything. He, he's there on Friday nights. He broadcasts with us. He's in a parking lot. He coaches. He does everything. He does everything at Anderson, doesn't he?
He does. And first of all, fist bump Danny for being in person here.
Yes.
You, John.
It is great.
Yeah, it's
man.
awesome.
Yeah.
No, first of all, Danny, talk about this guy right here is probably what this podcast we do now, and this is podcast 36 or 37.
Yeah.
That this is what's all about, having a guy that's been in town here, went to school here, lives here, still involved in the community, has done so much, as you said. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing I'm proud of him is what he's doing right now. He's done so many things over the years, but what he's doing right now in preserving the Redskin name.
Oh, yeah.
There's no one that I would want involved and in charge of that than this guy sitting with us right now.
No, I totally agree. And as we said, joining us is our guest, John Raymond. And John, thanks for joining us.
This is great. I'm glad we're doing it in studio. It's awesome.
Yes.
This is the first time I've been down here. I hit the door 3 times and did the special code, and you let me in, so I'll take it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty awesome. And I'm just glad that you're here. And I'm glad that you are our first guest in our studio. I mean, Steve and I were in here when we weren't fully finished with the studio, but the first guest, and we love it. So, John, talk. Let's go back. That we always kind of do this with everybody else.
Sure.
Let's go back to your days growing up in Anderson, and I know I've known you for a long time, but I always get confused I know you were in Anderson and you were in Michigan for a little bit. So, kind of give me your scenario of how you were in Anderson and Michigan and all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to start off, my mom and dad were from Ludlow, Kentucky, so I was always kind of down here with grandparents and stuff, but lived in Michigan because my dad worked at Millicron. So in 1971, which was 8th grade, he got a promotion back to Cincinnati, and we moved to Turpin Hills. And so I grew up in Turpin. And October of 71, so I was 2 months into 8th grade at the old middle school out on Beachfront Avenue.
Yep.
And literally the first day of school was basketball tryouts. So football was still going on. So I played football up in West Bloomfield. And again, it was just junior high level. But then came down here, and my first day of classes, I try out for the basketball team.
Oh, wow.
So, and made the team, which was good. But that's kind of how I got started. So I always tease today, I'm a Turpin guy that went to Anderson. So I literally grew up right across Newtown Road. I was the first street on the right, Bentley Court. And, I saw the middle school come up, and I saw the high school come up, and I don't know how many trips up and down Bartels I made as a kid going down to King Quick down on Clough Pike to turn in my bottles from the guys partying on Friday, Saturday night. And a friend of mine, Tom Carnes, who we're still real good friends with, he and I come every Sunday morning. He'd come over and grab me, and down the street we'd go. So
wow, that's crazy.
So so I got my start, playing basketball for Glenn Clarkston.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
name.
yeah.
And then I did track, and Don Bartholomew was the track coach, or Dan, I should say, is Mr. Bartholomew. I still call him that.
That's right.
And so that's kind of how I got my start doing stuff at Anderson, and it hasn't stopped since.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing that's funny too is that you still do the track from you go to Michigan. I think you were just there this past weekend, so you still have that Michigan roots still in you. And I know you do. You've done a lot for Michigan, the high school there that you went to. I know that you're heavily involved with some of that stuff there too as well.
Yeah, I don't know how I've stayed up with all that stuff, but yeah, one of the biggest things it's West Bloomfield High School, which is a suburb of Detroit, and they just won their first D1 football state championship. And so, but last spring, you'll like this, is my sister graduated from there in 1969. And that year, the basketball team made it to the Final Four in the Michigan State thing. And those guys were my idols, just like we've always talked about. Yeah. The older guys are your idols. Yep. And I went back for a reunion with my sister, her 50th, and she asked me to come along because I was her little brother that hung out with everybody. And got talking to the guys and said, we don't have a banner up in the gym. So I took it upon myself to get all the yearbooks, find out all the information. I dug out all my old pictures, and I went to the athletic director and said, hey, these guys deserve a banner. And he had no idea this team even existed.
Wow.
And that's something.
And so we did the whole thing, and then we had, there were 7 seniors on the team. We had all 7 come back for the 50th, and then we had 4 juniors and 1 sophomore. And the sophomore was Don Johnson, ended up playing at University of Michigan.
Wow.
And they lost to a Kalamazoo Hackett team that year. But what a neat experience. I go back last year, right before COVID hit. I have all these 68, 69-year-old guys, and they're looking at their banner, and they're tearing up, and they're crying.
That is so cool.
And they're just going, oh, my God, you didn't even have anything to do with this other than you were Ruthie's little brother.
Wow, that's cool.
So I've done a bunch of stuff with them, and I've stayed up. I've got a lot of friends still up that way. But
Well, I was going to ask you, I mean, I know you made a lot of roots down here, but
Yeah.
what about friends up there? Do you still keep in
a
contact?
lot, yeah.
Do you?
I said mostly some of my elementary school friends. We've been friends all these years,
Great.
just like we all have.
Sure.
When you grow up in an area, and basically I was there from 4 years old till I was 14, and still had a lot of friends there and a lot of contacts, so we still go up there a lot. And yeah, Michigan's in my soul. I was born in Kalamazoo. I was the only one. My sister was born in Ludlow. My mom and dad were from Ludlow.
Okay.
But I was the outsider at the time, so I've just stayed with Michigan as I came along.
That's good.
Yeah.
So when you were here and you said you tried out for basketball and made it, which
Yep.
was awesome, what other sports did you play?
I did track.
track?
Yeah, I ran hurdles with track, and I only did that through. I played basketball through junior year, and I wiped out my right ankle in tryouts.
Okay.
But to be honest with you, Steve, I heard Kevin Keefe was on.
Yeah.
I was one of those ones too that I was a good team player, and that's what I was.
All right.
But I played with with Rick Becker and Rick Elliott and Tim
Yeah.
Hall and all those guys.
Great athletes.
And then the guys behind me were Mark Reed and Dotson and Paul Seibert and those guys.
Wow.
So my junior year, I'm going to say I probably would have made the team, but I don't know if I would or not. But that's when I learned that my role was to step back and to become the male cheerleader on the side and the yeller and the screamer and the motivator, and that's what I did. And then for track, actually I had in 9th grade, Rick Carr was my coach.
Okay.
Because he moved from 7th grade over to 9th grade. And then 10th grade, Dick Sanders was there. And then Bill Hawkins was his assistant at the time.
Okay.
And so I kind of played under them, but Jeff Watterson was my JV coach.
Okay.
So that's who that was. And then track, I had Andy Wolf and Fred Enders.
Fred Enders,
wow.
sure.
So that's a name from the
Another
past.
legend.
So, yeah, absolutely. So
Wow.
Those are kind of the coaches I played for.
So correct me if I'm wrong, because I think my brother Brad told me this, that you can't do this in today's day and age, but Glenn Clarkston, he was not only the coach, but he was also the bus driver for the away games.
Absolutely. Track and basketball.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Track and basketball.
Yeah, the coach would
Absolutely.
drive the bus.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, absolutely. And Mr. Clarkson was an interesting guy.
Oh, I'm sure.
There was plenty of practices we did without basketballs. We just ran.
Really?
And he was a tough guy.
I bet.
Well, we were good. We were a good basketball team back then. So
That's
there's no
funny.
doubt.
So when you were at Anderson, I'm trying to think of the time frame when Turpin opened.
We were the
76.
year right before 76. We had 698 in our graduating class,
Mm-hmm.
and then the 77 seniors stayed at Anderson. So Turpin didn't have a senior class
right.
in 77. So I was kind of the last full class at Anderson.
How many did you say?
698 was in our class.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so that was crazy back then because we ran 2 shifts. We ran 7:15 to 1, and then the freshmen and sophomores came in at about 9:20, 9:30, and went to 4:30 in the afternoon.
The teachers would stay there all day?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And you got, back then there was modules. You remember, instead of an hour class, you had 2 modules.
Right.
And a module was 22 minutes. And I just remember I had lunch at 10:30 in the morning. And you had 22 minutes. I never ate lunch because there were so many kids in that school. There was like 2,300 students in that school at one
Jeez,
time.
Pete.
And that's way before they added all the stuff that was been there over the last 10, 15 years.
Sure, right.
The school was a lot smaller then. And you couldn't go off campus. You weren't allowed to, go over to McDonald's or anything. You had to stay on campus. And it was crazy.
So was there talk, I mean, I think there probably would have been about Turpin opening it up and how all that was going to play out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Who was going to go there and how, I mean, what was the...
Yeah, I would have been a Turpin guy. There's no doubt, living right across from the school. So
Okay.
the timing of it, and I remember stories of my dad. He went to the school board meetings and came back, and what I remember, even when my dad got a little older and he was sharing some stories with me, they were expecting Forest Hills just to continue to grow and grow and grow. His argument was always, we're landlocked. There's a big thing of water down there called the Ohio River. We can't go any further there.
That's right.
And same thing over towards Newtown. We couldn't go any further than Wooster Pike. So where were we going to go?
Yeah.
And how much bigger was it going to get? And kind of, to be honest with you, it kind of did flatten out.
It did.
It was more in the 90s, but nevertheless,
they're squeezing them in a little bit around here, but not a whole like some of the states are.
Exactly. But yeah, that kind of subdivision is gone forever.
That's not happening.
So yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, as I said earlier, you do so much for Anderson High School, and so what got you involved with all the volunteer stuff you did, or what was there something that made you do everything that you do, because you do a lot of stuff?
It was an interesting story. I was working for Ohio Pro Care, and we had a store up on Beachmont Avenue in Cherry Grove, and it was 1990. I remember it like it was yesterday, and Ann Hall came in. Mike Hall,
sure.
Principal at the time,
yep.
his wife, and I had an Anderson cup sitting on my desk, and she didn't know me from Adam, and she says, "Why do you have an Anderson cup?" And I said, "Well, I graduated from there in '76." She goes, "Then we need to talk." And next thing I know, Mike comes in that afternoon. We start talking about stuff, and he says, "I really want to get some alumni going and get some things re-engaged and do some things." And I said, "Well, I'd be interested in doing that."
Yeah.
And at the time, my son Blake was only 2 years old in 1990. So I had time to do some of that stuff, and Ann and Mike Halls one really
wow.
going back.
That's incredible.
Going back in and really starting to do other things, and then Randy Corbett was the AD in '96 when they got the Blue Ribbon Award, and he brought us in, Chris Anderson and I both, and we did a lot of sponsorship for that Blue Ribbon event, and it just caught fire, and then the football team was doing so good, and it was just like, oh my, I mean, poor Blake, my son. When he was 5 years old, he had an Anderson Letterman jacket. I mean, we had a black jacket. He had 07 on it. This is in 1992.
Oh, wow.
And I was ready, man. He was an Anderson Redskin. We were going, man.
Yeah.
That poor child had no chance. So Ann and Mike Hall's the one that really kind of got me back involved, and then it just kind of steamrolled from there.
Yeah. Well, you don't discount the principals before Mike Hall, especially Chris Steffen, but
absolutely.
But Mike Hall just completely took the school to another level, both academically and athletic.
He was so engaging. He was so easy to work with, and Mr. Steffen was too. I graduated with Eddie. Eddie was in my class, so I was over at Mr. Steffen's house when we were kids and all that kind of stuff too. And same with Mr. Miller. Bill Miller graduated with me. Right. So, and we even did that on one night when we had Joe in down on the field. That was kind of cool. But yeah, it was just one of those things with Mike Hall. He's just such a nice guy, and he just asked, would you be interested in doing this? I couldn't say no.
That's right.
And you just went and did it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what do you think you like better, the coaching part of it or the volunteer part of it, or you kind of just like them both?
It's a good combination. I did girls basketball from 1999 to 2015. I was on Chris Carletti's staff there. Different roles there. Mostly the JV assistant. Always sitting on the bench with the varsity, and then I ran the freshman girls a couple different years. I really enjoyed doing that. And then I've been with softball now this is my 13th season with softball, which is hard to believe. And I don't have a daughter. That's what's even crazier about all that. But there's a coach, Jim Fay, and I know both you guys know Jim.
Legend.
And his daughter was just coming in at Anderson in '99, and he said, and we coached our boys together in AAU basketball and baseball and Forest Hills youth football and all that. He said, I need another coach to teach girls how to shoot free throws. And I went in one night and I caught the fever. It was like, this is great. I love it. And, all of a sudden it was 16 years later, and it was our time to move, and that was fine. But we had a nice run. We had 4, league championships during that period, and it was a fun time. But the volunteerism, same thing. It's just one project led to another, and then I was booster vice president for 4 years with John Nettler when he was there, and Wayne Rod. I ended up going 2 skits with 2 different presidents, and I just love being around it. I love being around the kids, around the people, re-engaging with guys like you that other alumni. And it's easy to do.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And the dynamic of all the different athletic directors you've had to deal with, in a good way, but what would be your thoughts on the current one with Chris Newton?
He's top shelf.
Top shelf.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's such a good guy. When Pam decided that she was going to leave, and I know that Jeff Giesing was up for it, and Newton was up for it. But when Jeff got it, and I know Jeff very well too. I mean, his son Kyle and Blake are best friends. They
Right.
always were. So I knew Jeff very well and coached with him in Pee Wee football and stuff. But I know he wanted it. But when he heard Newt had, I think he knew. This is a good guy for Anderson.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I called Newt that very night and I said, "Hey, I'm open. What do you want me to do?" And boy, he took advantage of that. Next day, he called me with a list of stuff.
Yeah.
Can you do this? This?
That's funny.
I said, "Absolutely." But yeah, absolutely. And he is so into the kids and what's right for that side of the building, the athletic side. And he hard works just like softball fields right now. I mean, he's out putting our fence up. I mean, just rolling our fields, and he's a workaholic on top of it, and a top shelf guy.
I don't think a lot of people realize that. If they were to go and compare, go look at other schools and what their athletic directors do, it's not even close.
Yeah. And we've had some good ones because Mike Morgan was there, and then Pam Scott was there for a long time. But I started when Randy was there.
Randy Corbett. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
Joe Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been some really good ones along the way.
I'll tell you what, one guy that we just recently, unfortunately, passed away is Mike Penwell.
Mike Penwell.
Yeah, that's
He was a real good one, too.
Yeah.
That was probably like right before you started helping, wasn't
Correct.
it?
Yeah.
Because I think he was like late 80s.
Right.
And former football coach John Stowe.
Right.
He was an athletic director there for a little bit,
Yes,
too.
When we were there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
some good ones.
So I'm going to switch over to what you're wearing there with the Anderson Fast Pitch. So you said you've been there for 13 years?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk a little bit about how strange this last year has been with the COVID and the unfortunate thing, because I don't know what the previous 11 years were for softball, but I know last year was going to be one of the best years in the school's history potentially, and unfortunately got canceled with the COVID.
Yeah, I was assistant under two different coaches. Heather Morense was the first step there, and then she left. I actually left as well. Another coach came in, and she was there 2 years. And the first year I didn't come back. The second year she asked me to come back, and I did.
Okay.
Then she decided to leave and go on. She was pregnant and had children and stuff.
Okay.
And then the current regime came in, and it was one of those ones that we kind of took over. So we were always up and down. But I want to fast forward to last year's team.
Sure.
We had 7 seniors. 5 of them are playing at the collegiate level right now.
How about that?
And we lost the season.
Yeah.
And we really had a real potential run. At least, I don't know if we would have won state, but we would have went deep into the thing.
Well, I remember when Abby played with them when they were in junior high.
Right.
And Jeff Giesing was the coach.
Right.
And they didn't lose a game, Danny. And they were just killing teams.
Yeah.
And you're like, these guys are really, really good when they get in high school.
Well, Dan, someone,
Stella Walker, and then the Maddens.
the Madden twins, unbelievable.
And then we had, Peyton Murray was our first baseman, and then Ellie Caudill. And she listened to this story. She walked on at West Point.
Yeah.
She got in the starting lineup. She's hitting 364, hit a home run on Saturday.
Saw that.
And she's starting second baseman as a walk-on freshman at West Point.
How about that?
Jeez, Pete, that's impressive.
That coach has to be just sitting there going, what
Christmas
in the
morning.
world just happened?
I know.
No kidding.
Just fell in his lap. So we'll talk a little bit. I mean, that's unbelievable because you guys have been really, really good.
Right.
But how did that work with the whole COVID situation?
Well, we started the season pretty much ready to go, and then we were literally about 5 days away from starting the season, and that's when they shut us down. We got 1 game in, and it wasn't a league game. We called over to Turpin, and they said they wanted to play. And everybody literally ran home, got their uniforms, and we went over to Bartels Road, and we got a 7-inning game in. And it was more of a neighborhood thing than anything, because all those girls went to middle school together.
Sure.
And Jess does a great job over at Turpin. And Dick and Jess got together and just said, hey, why don't we make this happen? And they had a couple players that they wanted to get some time in, and we actually got a game in. And then after that, it was like every 3 days, are we going to play? Are we not going to play? And then all of a sudden, weeks stretched into 2 weeks, stretched into a month, and then they shut us down completely. And it was for everybody. The prom
Stunning.
got destroyed, graduation got destroyed, the actual ceremony parts of it.
Right.
And then, any of the sports, lacrosse and track and us with softball, it was so disheartening for the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a shame especially for those seniors from last year.
Right. Yeah.
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 So in switching on to your other multitask that you do, I don't know if we have enough time for all this, Dan.
Yeah, I know. We probably don't.
But one of the things you do, and it involves me, is that you do the stats for Frank Brandy for the Anderson High School boys basketball team, but
Right.
you also do the stats for me out of Claremont College, which is so unbelievably amazing and appreciative, and it's so helpful what you do, and I know Frank is appreciative too. What would you say is the big difference in keeping those stats between the high school and the college?
Well, I'll make it plain and simple. When I'm doing UCC games, mostly the first couple years got in there, you were averaging like 80 or 90 points a game, and the game was so fast. I'll never forget. Steve, I got to tell a story. The first game I did with you guys, I think the score was 98-94, something like that, and it was just rapid fire. And I'm just, and you've heard me over there. I'm just going 100 miles an hour. The very next night, I did an Anderson game, and the score was 38-36, and I felt like I was in slow motion.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But there's definitely even, doesn't matter what college level you're at. There's just such a difference. This year it was an exciting year. I think the Redskins did a nice job.
Sure.
They had a nice, I think, Frank, Danny, tell me, I think they got 12 or 13 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
They
believe
had
so.
a nice season. They had some really, really good games, competitive games. They were in every
Battling.
game. And it was fun to watch and fun to call. It was a little different this year because, again, with COVID, you didn't have the stands full. Turpin games were horrible because you shake with the stands because
Right,
of where we
right.
sit.
Oh,
but this
yeah.
year it was a little quieter because we didn't have that many people in. But no, it's again, a love of the game. I just love basketball. And when you called and asked me that day, would I be interested? It wasn't even a thought process. And I got to say one thing. I got a very understanding wife.
Well, I was going there next.
Yeah.
I mean, because
I think we all do.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
as much
Yeah.
stuff that we do.
yeah, they know how much we love the stuff we do, but the time you put in is just incredible.
Liz is a saint.
She is a saint.
All right, so
No
Liz,
question.
Donna, and Krista are seeing this right now. That's definite brownie points for saying something about them right now.
Yeah.
So
But-
John brought it up, so it's more for him.
That's right. But no, it's really the truth because once she understands it, she gets it.
Yeah.
And she just knows how much I enjoyed it. It's my relief valve, just like all of us. That's why
Sure,
we
right.
do what we do.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
no doubt.
yeah, so let's kind of go into. You talked about Blake, your son Blake. I played football for Vince Soriano. Talk a little bit about what that was like watching Blake play during that time because they had some really, really good teams back then.
Yeah, he was on the last of Vince's teams last year, and that final game down at Paul Brown when they beat Harrison.
I remember that.
And it was such a good game. Blake got a lot of playing time that game, and it was a back and forth game. That was Daniel Rod's one of his first starts because
Okay.
Kyle Geesting got
Something.
hurt. So
Yes.
he couldn't play. So Daniel came in. Daniel actually played the Mason game as well, and they almost pulled the Mason game off.
Yep.
But it was great. And, Vince is such a good guy. And, we came up with the victory bell during his tenure there, those 4 years, and we brought the turf in. During those 4 years, Blake was there because when we got the turf, Blake was a freshman.
Yeah.
So he got to play on that turf all 4 of his
great.
4 years. So that was really cool. And Blake also wrestled, and he also did track and baseball. So he kind of a 4-sport kid. But he threw discus and shot his senior year just because he didn't want to go get a job. He decided not to play baseball. I'll never
That's a good
forget.
deal.
That was my first year coaching softball, and I'm up and I'm hitting ground balls to the girls, and I look up because the discus is out in right field.
Right.
You see the discus pit out there?
Yeah.
And I look out, and Blake's out there throwing a discus. And so we got home for dinner that night. I said, "What's the deal?" And he goes, "I really don't want to get a job." And he said, "As long as I'm playing sports, I don't have to get a job."
Smart kid.
So it was
That
his
is
senior
smart.
year, but he ended up having a great year. He got a lot of points. He didn't. I mean, he was a 5'10", 180-pound discus thrower, but he threw it pretty good. He got some points for the varsity team, and Andy was happy to see him. It was kind of cool that he got to play for Andy, and I got to
kid.
do stuff
Yep.
for Andy as well too. So that was kind of cool.
So when you were in high school, speaking of having jobs, did you have a job in high school?
I did. I worked down on Clough Pike. There is a Pennzoil gas station, and it's called Fleet Wing, and that's where I worked. And right now, it's an Ameristop, and there's a car wash right behind it.
Oh, yeah.
It's right down there. And
Okay.
that's where I worked in high school, sophomore and junior year, and then I moved up to the Sunoco station on Beachmont my senior year.
Okay.
So, yeah, I did gas station stuff.
So
I was a motorhead.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, you had a nice Camaro too, right?
I did, yes.
See?
Yeah. That fed my habit. You
That's
know?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So did you have the little chain thing, the coin thing?
Oh, yeah. This is how bad it is.
There
I
it
still
is.
have it. And it's in my old stuff. Absolutely. You bet. So I had to wash window. Back then, it was no self-service. It was all full service.
Yeah.
So anything $2 or more, I had to wash the front window.
Yeah.
If it was over $3, I had to do the front and rear window.
Okay.
I had to ask them to check their oil. And then if they needed tires aired up, I did it from A to Z. And then
I'd have to have a cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All for $2.
Cheat sheet.
All for
look and see.
$2.
Yeah. All for $2.
That's
So,
crazy.
So what got you to Summit Estates, where you're living now?
it just naturally went that way. We decided that, and again, Liz is a saint, that we were going to stay in Anderson Township.
Okay.
My wife is from Green Hills. She went to Green Hills High School.
Wow,
And we met at work. That's kind of how we met.
Okay.
We kind of came back and said, we want to look in Milford. We were originally going to look in Milford or Terrace Park, something that way. And Shirley Slusher was our realtor. She worked for Sipsy Klein. She calls. She goes, I don't have anything in Milford, but I got something in the newer part of Summit called Amherst Acres.
Yep.
And I got the for sale sign in my trunk.
Oh.
I haven't even put the sign up yet. This was on a Sunday morning. And we went and looked at it, and we stayed in the kitchen. The couple that owned the house was down in the basement. We negotiated, and we bought the house right
No
then and there.
kidding.
I mean, it was
What year was that?
87.
Wow.
87. And
So
we've
you've
been
been
there
there
ever
since?
since. Yeah, we've been in the house 34 years.
How about that?
And the beauty is that you pay taxes in 2 counties, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Our backyard's Claremont County. Well, you know,
Yeah, I knew,
you
yeah.
live right down the street from
Yeah,
us.
that's crazy.
And the pool's in Claremont County, and the rest of the house is in Hamilton.
That's
so,
crazy.
Yeah. So in the midst of all the things you do at Anderson High School, what do you do for a living? what do you do that pays?
You know
pays
what?
For,
Nobody's ever asked me that question.
Oh yeah. By the way, where do you make money?
Yeah, currently what I'm doing is I work for AAA Bob Summerall Tire Service, and I'm the senior fleet director. And what that is I go out and we have 97 locations now in 13 different states.
Wow.
And I go out and get the commercial fleet business. So if you're a plumber or electrician and you have company vehicles that need to get oil changes and brake work and things of that nature.
Gotcha.
That's what I go out and solicit.
Okay.
To have those people coming into our different facilities to
Yep.
get the work done on their cars.
Cool.
And I've been there for now going on 17 years. And I had the very similar role for 20 years at ProCare. So I've kind of been doing automotive my whole entire life.
What wasn't there a ProCare at Witt and Beachmont
Yeah,
too?
there was 2 of them on
Were you
Beachmont.
there too?
No, that was Chris Anderson's.
Okay.
So he was at Beachmont and Witt. I was at Cherry Grove.
Okay.
And then his assistant manager was John O'Rourke, who graduated from Anderson in 79.
Yep.
I had Danny Simmons, who graduated in 75. So we had all 4 managers graduate from Anderson High School.
Look at that.
That's crazy.
At one point in time. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And they really hit me up for the signage.
Oh,
they
I'm
say,
sure.
oh, ProCare's got 4 managers.
Yeah.
You're all alumni. So,
As it should
Crazy.
be.
yeah.
Right. We talked obviously about, all the things that you do. And one of the things I got you kind of roped in 10 years ago, I decided that I wanted to kind of start an alumni association, and kind of threw it at you and say, what do you think? You think we can do this? And of course you said yes. I knew you would not say no. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think our little idea that we had 10 years ago, I'll be honest, I didn't think that it would go as well as it did. And it started off with our golf outing.
Right.
And we didn't have a lot of people, but every year it's grown bigger and bigger every year. But talk a little bit about how cool that's been. I mean, I know it has been for me. Talk about for you how it's grown.
Well, absolutely. I remember meeting you at Frisch's that morning, and we were saying, okay, how do we lay this whole thing out? And it came up to, well, we got to start, and we'll start with a core group of people, which was the folks that we knew, and then it then kind of blossomed out of just saying, okay, and then we need an event. And of course, the golf outing came out, and the timing of that was just perfect.
It was.
Vince really wanted to do something, and they were coming off such strong years in football right around that time too, and it was just easy to get people to come back. And I forget what the first number on year
It
one
was low. It was like 36 people, maybe 24, something
we
like that.
worked our tails off that thing. It was just he and I.
Yeah.
And I was doing everything the football moms, because of course he had to go out and golf. So I'm back there doing everything else. But no, it was one of those things. And then Vince was very supportive of it, and because when Vince retired and Jeff took over, it was just a natural baton handoff
Sure.
because it was like, yes, and then even to this point, I think Evan didn't realize how powerful it was when he got here, but he does now. It's a whole different situation.
Yeah.
And getting more and more of the alumni, and last year we had, COVID's not a fair barometer.
But we still, for having COVID, we still hit up in the 96 for COVID. That's
we were
pretty
over
good.
110.
112, 124. We got up to 120 something one year.
And what a huge event it creates for football, and it's done so much good for the program, and a lot of people don't even see it, but the players see it. When you go up in their locker room and you see the stuff that we've created through that with signage and helping with signage, or what their uniforms look like, or what that stuff is, or when we go to an event and I know USBN always gives the Player of the Week awards. That's just stuff that's huge. We started off with T-shirts. Now they get a real nice placard and all that stuff. And then when we did Redskin Review, how much that created, and bringing alumni in for all that, it was just huge.
Well, I'll say this from the outside, because not being a football guy, and what you guys have done, it's absolutely incredible, because I know from personally talking to some of those guys how much they appreciate what you guys do, and they still feel a part of the team. Years gone by, and unfortunately, other sports have not done that at Anderson, and maybe someday they will. It's a lot of work, as you guys know, but just to help out with the tradition is incredible.
Well, and I'm going to say that right behind you, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it in the screen or not, is the reason why I did is because of your dad, because there's all those scores back there, and there's your dad back there, and what he did for those kids. So that's kind of what got me involved in it and wanting to continue, because that thing is the coolest thing I've ever seen. This records that your dad did, it's the coolest thing. And then it's kind of weird. John and I have been talking about this, and you're gonna die. But so it's led to our documentary now that we're doing, and we've been working on it for a long time. And it's going to be really cool. But now the other thing that John and I are talking about, can't believe we're going to do this, but I think we're going to do an Anderson High School football only Hall of Fame. So guys that are not in the Hall of Fame we're going to make a Hall of Fame.
That's right. That's awesome.
So
that's
like
really
guys
cool.
like Timmy Albers, that should be in the Hall of Fame. Could be in the Hall of Fame.
There's slews of them.
There's so many guys out there. So many great guys. So we're thinking about doing that, and it's going to take a lot,
or at least some recognition.
Exactly. Like a Ring of Fame, basically. Ring of Fame, Hall of Fame. We can do
one story on the record page. I don't know if you know this or not, but that went in that. Disappeared for years and years and years. And Mike Morgan came to me, and he found that thing and said, "Do you want this?" And thank goodness he did, because I grabbed it. I had no idea your dad was associated to it. So then when I showed it to Danny for the first time, he's going, "Oh my, do you know?" And then it all connected the dots. But that thing could have just been thrown away. And talk about an archive of history.
Isn't that something?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so cool to look at.
It really is.
Yeah, Dan, you should take a picture of that and put it on your website or something.
Yeah, I will. It's pretty awesome.
It's funny that it could have just went and somebody could have just tossed it away, but Mike Morgan he was a football guy too.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "Boy, this thing's got some history, and you're weird enough, John. You'll do something with it." So I said, absolutely. So
well, speaking of history, Danny, I want to go to this point here before we wind this down. Is the most important job that John has right now in Anderson is preserving the Redskin history and the honor of it, and how important it is to you, Danny, and to me, and to my family, and everybody around the community. And John, if you could just take a few moments to talk about the time and effort and what has gone on with that, and how much it really means to you, because there's no one more appreciative than us right here, and we can't wait to see what you've done. But it tugs at our heartstrings a lot, and it's tough to even talk about. All of us. We're anxious to see what you got going.
Well, I was fortunate enough that I've done a couple different projects for the current principal, Rob Fellows, and he knows what an alumni nut I am. And he reached out to me once the thing was made and the decision. He reached out and said, "I'm putting this committee together, and it's going to be just not more about what the name may change to or whatever, but he goes, there's really an important piece of this, and I want you to be the head of the subcommittee of honoring the past. And we want to have something at the school that represents just not the 84 years of the Redskins, but even the 6 years of the Comets, taking us back to 1929, and so many schools don't have anything or even that kind of history.
Right.
And Turpin doesn't even have. They go back to 1970. It's old, but
Right.
1929, how special is that? And even in the current building we're in right now, that was opened in 1961, and all of us went. When we walked those halls, we walked them when we were 14, 15 years old too.
Right.
And I just think that's really cool.
Yep.
This is silly, but I still, to this day, when I'm in that gym, I could sit there and envision myself running suicides.
That smell.
That's what I did.
Yep.
And all these years later. But so going back to honoring the past, so what was kind of the task at hand is I have 3 students that are going to be working with me on that. One of them is your daughter, Abby. And then Reese Kincaid is a junior.
Yep.
And then we have a freshman, Chad Bowling. Those are the 3 students that are going to be helping with the project. And then I have Joe Walla, who's an alumni, who's also a teacher and then coaches track right now.
Yep.
And then Joe's sister, Amy, actually played basketball for us, so I know their family very, very well. So I'm glad Joe's on the team. And then, so what we've put together, we didn't really have a whole lot to do with the rebranding and the naming, even though we were part of all those meetings and kind of knew what was going on. But as I told our whole group, we're really going to kick in once that's all said and done, because then it's going to be, what do we do to preserve everything else? So what we come up with, and I'll just give you a little sprinkle of what it is we're going to have in the athletic wing of the school, so it's going to be right outside the gym doors.
Okay.
We're going to have 2 display cases that are approximately going to be 36 inches long by 108 inches high, and in the middle of that, a 36-inch wide by about 100-inch tall with a 55-inch screen monitor kiosk that we're going to archive every yearbook that we have.
Wow.
So the idea of it is, if you come in, the display cases will have all kinds of memorabilia. And a couple cool things I have. I left the top sections open. I have a 1957 Letterman sweater.
Wow.
With the A on it, the gold basketball, and a couple things. I had that donated. And we have a 1962 Letterman jacket.
Wow.
And so we're going to have those on display, and then we're going to open it up to the alumni to say, if you have something that you want to donate or you want to put on loan, almost like a museum, that we'll be able to display in that case. And one of the other things I got a 42 and 43 diploma. It's in mint condition. Somebody donated to us.
Unbelievable.
So that thing will go in the archives. But then the kiosk is going to work where if you come in and you're the class of 1998, you could hit 1998 and your yearbook will pop up. And then you'll be able to flip through the pages and
No
see
kidding.
That is really cool.
It's going to be really cool.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure this is all going to go. And we have every yearbook from 1930. Well, it was the 2930 year when Anderson started. So we have the very first yearbook. They even put a yearbook out last year, even with co-ed, even though the spring sports stuff wasn't in it.
Right.
But so we're going to archive every one. And then there's going to be some other stuff that Rob wants to put some other stuff in. We'll be able to do some advertising on it as well. Or if there's an event for across the hallway in the auditorium, if there's a play going on or something, we can run advertising on that for the play as well.
So I got a stupid question. Are you allowed to show any kind of anything Redskin out in the open?
Well, right now, Rob is open to anything that we're going to show him. Yes.
Okay.
So I don't. Chief Pontiac, that's what I call the statue.
Yeah.
Chief Pontiac will not be on display. But what I've got there is I've gotten approval through the Anderson Historical Society. They want to give it a couple years for things to calm down, but they're open to bringing it in and putting it over at the Historical Society with some type of a placard. So,
well, it's history.
And then I've had Dale Adams has offered that he'll take care of it for us. It's kind of in hiding right now. We got it hidden away in a closet because we don't want it to disappear or anybody to do anything to it. But Dale even offered up for like class reunions. If you're gonna have a class reunion, we could bring Chief Pontiac to the event.
That is cool.
And I think we'll do stuff like that.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And then Danny and I have talked about doing some type of a museum thing too.
We want to.
From a portable one that we move around,
Yeah.
or do we find a storefront somewhere that we can rent cheap and have some type of a museum there for those. And we'll probably still get some people picking at it. But the majority of the people that still want to see it, I think it will do just fine.
I think Danny would put it right here in the corner.
Basement. I'll do it in my basement because then if they want to bicker, it's my house.
Exactly right. So, but going back to the Rob has really made it a focus that we want to do something, to have something in that building that talks about the history and keeps it. Are we going to play it up real big? Probably not, but it won't be snuffed out as well.
Yeah.
And I talked with a half dozen different schools everywhere from Michigan all the way out to Oregon that had the Redskin names has transitioned to a different name, and how they did it, only one school did a historical thing. Only one.
Only one. Yeah.
And so I feel really good that they're at least giving us that opportunity. And we'll see how much they let. And I think as things calms down, we'll be able to do different things. And I really love the alumni idea. If we can go out and do stuff, and you're having a class reunion, and
I agree.
We're always going to be Redskins.
You know what?
So
Speaking of that, let's get it rolling for the golf outing.
there you go. That'd be a great
Bring it
thing.
to the golf outing.
I'm sure we could do that.
Yeah, I mean,
That'd be a
would-
great idea. It'd be a great
Well,
idea.
I'm so glad you're doing it, John, and my daughter, as you said, is involved in it. It means a lot to her.
It's been a pleasure working with her.
Yeah.
And she's still got a lot of work ahead of her.
I know she does.
But,
And
but
she loves it.
nevertheless, I've known Abby since 7th grade, but this project has really gotten us talking with each other, and I know she's really involved with the current thing she's doing, and she's a great kid, and
Yeah,
I really
she's
enjoy
awesome.
working with her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, she's really passionate about this, though.
Yes,
I mean,
there's no doubt.
representing for our family, but for the whole community,
Right.
and I'm glad you're involved in it, John.
Well, thanks. Whoop, here we
I don't
go.
know what happened on that one.
Yeah, we're tilting.
Well, she's another one that is kind of reminds me of John, because she does stuff for me all the time. I'll send her a text and say, hey, can you make this logo for me? And she does it. And
Yeah.
oh, I love doing it. That's just the way Abby
Well,
is.
she's
you know?
going to be my trigger on this kiosk thing. She knows that's going to be her bailiwick.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're going to make sure. And she's already offered, Dad, that even though she's going away to school, I said, you aren't going that far away.
That's right.
So, and she's been very
Bailiwick?
open to that. Yeah.
Bailiwick?
You like that word?
I love
We
it.
should use that in a Friday night football
Yeah.
game.
Well, I wasn't going to.
Bailiwick it.
I wasn't going to bring your word into it. I'll just let that go.
It behoove you to use
Yeah,
that.
see,
There it is.
you got it in, Dan. Good for you.
So let's kind of get close to wrapping this thing up. But we could sit here all day. I love it now. We don't
Yeah.
have to worry about anything. But let's go back and talk about like a favorite, maybe a high school memory that you have.
Okay.
And let's go. I mean, we can do anything. We could say college, but we could say maybe your favorite teacher or favorite coach. We can go that way with it, or maybe something that your son, favorite moment of that. So just give us some favorite moments of any one of those.
I guess for me in high school, one of my, favorite moments was not so much athletically. It was more of our senior prank. And it was a pretty good prank. We decided, and I don't know why we did, but there was a group of us, and then there was a lot of guys that shouldn't have been doing what they were doing, and actually 2 of them were baseball players at the time. So this was right at the end of school. We decided to take a mannequin and hang him from the top of the flagpole. So we did that. And so, if you drive in through Forest and you look back at the school, you can see the American flag as you're getting ready to turn in the parking lot. Well, he looked just like a dark silhouette up there when you were riding, and we just thought we were the coolest things in the world.
Oh, my goodness.
So we thought that was really cool. And then all of a sudden we're in second mod, and Mr. Steffen comes on and he says, whoever put the mannequin out on the flagpole, we know who you are. You better report to the principal's office.
Oh, no.
Well, little did he know his son was part of that.
Oh.
So I'll never forget. Eddie was down the hallway, and he comes out, and there's like 3 of us all in. We were in senior lobby. You guys remember
Yeah,
senior
sure,
lobby?
yeah.
And we were in senior lobby. He goes, I can't do this. And I said, so me and Steve Smith decided we're going to take the bullet. And then I backed out. So Steve went and took the bullet for us.
Oh, wow. Look at you backing out.
Yeah,
like
it
that.
was, but that was one of my favoriteest moments. I guess let me give you one other one. Football. Of course, Turpin wasn't around yet, so McNick was the arch rival.
Right.
That was their 25th year, was the 75-76 season. They had a giant rocket out in front of the school. It was a big, like two plywood, probably 16 feet. It said 25th anniversary. So we got up on the roof at McNicholas High School with the chains, yanked it up, and we stole the rocket.
Oh, my gosh.
And that rocket sat down in a barn in Newtown probably about 10 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. And that was a good one, too.
That was a good one.
That was a good one.
Never to be returned.
Yeah,
Jeez,
never to be returned. So, but that was arch rival stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
that was, those guys would run up and down Forest Avenue squirting people with fire extinguishers. We'd go down Beachmont Avenue squirting people with fire extinguishers.
Oh, my gosh.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd empty the goo out of them and put water in them, but that's what we did. So,
That's awesome.
so favorite teacher in high school was my high school counselor, Pat White. Mrs. White was there through my high school years. She lived in Turpin. Her husband, Bill, was a great guy. And my parents just appreciated what she did, and what she did for me was just incredible. And then she went to Turpin, and then she was at Seven Hills for a number of years. So, and she came to our 45th class reunion.
No kidding.
She was the only teacher that came and did stuff with us.
That was great.
Great lady.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. That's right. And then going with Blake, I was so proud of him, and just being an Anderson Redskin, and
absolutely
every game. I mean, I just you see your kid out there. It doesn't matter what they're doing or what they aren't doing. They're out there.
Yep.
And it just made me feel good. Probably his best game was against West Carrollton. I don't know if you remember. Game. They came down here, and we had a lightning strike.
Yep.
And they didn't get the full game in. He got about 3/4 in, but he had his best game defensively. He was a long snapper, and then he played nose guard and a little bit of linebacker. So, but he loved football. That was his passion. And, he had a chance to go to Wilmington as a long snapper. And then he came and said, no, Colin and I want to go to NKU. And that's what they did. They were great in their fraternity football league. Let me tell you that.
I bet.
So, so that was kind of Blake's big deal. But just so proud of everything he got accomplished and still is. I mean, he's now a father of 5.
Well, I was going to say, you're loving the grandkids. I can tell you that.
Oh, my God. 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 7-year-old, and twins that are 3. So Grandpa's getting back with youth football and basketball and all the stuff that's going with it. So, but
all the hours in a day for this guy.
It doesn't have enough.
Hey, Dan, I want to ask him real quick before we get off here. Is the question that you ask a lot of people, but I think it's more fitting for John. Is tell us why you think Anderson is such a great community, and why you've stayed here and lived here, and all the volunteering you do. What from your perspective makes it so great?
I've said this on other stuff too. It's just home. It's just home to me. I love going down the street and somebody, or hey, that's them, or you wave, or they wave at you, and the Anderson community at the high school with you guys and it's just, there's nothing like it. Yeah. And I could not see somebody for a year and a half and call them, and it's just like we haven't missed a beat. We haven't missed a beat. And even, it's funny, at our age, what's happening is a lot of the people that moved away are now moving back. Maybe their parents are getting older or whatever, so they're coming back because they're Oreos. They got young kids and they got their parents are trying to take care of. But they're coming back, and if they aren't in Anderson, they're close. They're in Amelia, or they're staying close. And Tommy Johnson's one that brings to mind. His dad was Tiger Johnson, the coach of the Bengals. He graduated with me, and they just moved back. They're over in the Kings area, but he wants to get re-engaged with Anderson stuff, which is great. Yeah. And that's what we're going to work on him on the alumni stuff and bring some of those guys back in, the 70s guys and stuff like that. But that's it. It's home to me, and I just feel comfortable going wherever I go. And obviously Beachmont Avenue has changed a whole lot in 45 years or however long it's been. But it's still, we have so much fun on Friday nights with that, about naming old restaurants or doing all that. And that's what's part of the fun.
Sure.
That's just part of the fun. So.
Yeah, it's a great community, I know. And what's even great about this is we all live real close to each other, so it's not far to get to here to the studio.
That's right.
We're within a couple of, we could actually probably walk to, well, you're a little bit farther.
Well, at one point in our neighborhood, Steve was there, Jeff Davis, who was a volleyball coach, I was coach, and then Jeff Geesting was right around the corner.
Well, then you had, who'd you say was a booster president? Where Nettler was there.
Yeah. So, I mean, we had a lot.
And Jim Fay was around the corner.
Oh, Jim Fay was right over on Pine Bluff. So, there was a lot of people was right there that ended up coaching and having kids in the system.
Yep.
So,
Johnny, I know that I appreciate everything that you do for me. You do a ton for me, and there's no way that I could do the things that I do. There's no way this alumni association probably would have taken off if it wasn't for you kind of giving me that push to get it going. And I think it's successful because of you. And, you and I have done a really good job and to keep it going. And I appreciate everything that you do for me, not only with, the alumni, but our Friday night broadcast. It means a lot to me, and just other stuff that you do for me and keep me in tune with everything. Some of the stuff that you give me, that's really cool that you gave me that menu from back in the 45 team. You gave me some old programs. All that stuff is, I just like you. I love the history part of it, as does Steve. But I know I appreciate everything you've done for me.
Well, it's an honor to be with you guys, and it's hard to, I think I'm at year 10 or 11 with the Friday night group now, so I'm becoming a veteran all of a sudden.
You are. If you hit over 10, you're a veteran. It probably is close to 10 years now.
And then, you gave me let me come in and do the the producing of Redskin Review, which
Yeah.
I love doing that.
Yeah, I forgot
And
about that. Yeah.
that started all that stuff, and then it just kind of morphed into somehow I talked him and let me go down on the field. I don't know why
very cool stuff,
He
though.
let me do it, but
Yeah.
he let me.
No, it makes a big difference. And me and Greg and I are pretty nice and cozy up in the press
Yeah.
box where you're down there with all the thermals down there, getting
Wet, cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Some of the
Yeah,
nights.
especially up in Piqua this past year.
Oh, it was nasty down there.
I
let
was
me tell
there.
you.
Yeah.
It was good though. But this is awesome. I love that we can do this in the studio, and I think that we should do some more stuff together. Do some shows or do whatever we want to do just to talk about whatever. I
Sure.
just think it's cool. We can bring other people in here too if we want to. So, but I really appreciate you taking the time, John, joining us.
Thanks, both of you guys.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you, John.
You bet.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. So for This Week in Anderson. So for Steve Ellis, John Raymond, and Dan Albers, you've been watching This Week in Anderson. We'll catch you next week.